Welcome all in, everybody, to another edition of the unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. I'm Zach Farmer. That's Thomas Dunn. And we're going to get into some roster building, recruiting with some big movement from some WCC teams. We'll get into that. We'll get into LMU with a potential breakout star heading to the Bluff in LA. We'll talk about St. Mary's bolstering their non-conference schedule once again. There's definitely some look at that. We'll also talk a little bit about the WCC League matchups. We do have those that have come out. Obviously, we know like 16 games. It's not a full round robin. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of those one-offs that we're going to see throughout conference play. Those will some very key one-offs I think we'll start to see. But we're going to start with the Pepperdine Waves because like over the last few weeks, they have been busy. And the top of which was the recruitment of a top 50 recruit, Alex Constanza. I spelled that incorrectly in the graphic, so I will make that correction right now. But this is one that, I mean, kind of came out of nowhere. This one is high impact for the Waves because this was someone who decommitted from Georgetown. This is a 6'8" wing from Miami, number 47 in ESPN's top 100. This kid is going to be able to give them the scoring, give them the versatility. Pepperdine is starting to look really good on paper, and under new head coach Griff Aldrich, this is a Pepperdine team we cannot ignore anymore.
No, you can't. And there are a lot of programs that are kind of veering into that territory in the WCC, and I think that's something where I'm encouraged by the progress of kind of the mid-tier, so to speak, and intrigued to see how like kind of the roster kind of comes together in terms of building that team from scratch, so to speak, like Griff Aldrich is doing. And I think more than anything, yes, you still have to play the games, but this is like an optics and PR win. Like you got a top 50 recruit nationally, like going to Malibu, and don't get me wrong, Malibu's nice. Like it's a nice area. You're on a really nice campus. You're now entering a very nice arena with the Mountain at Mullen very soon. So I think you look at all those, there's a lot of things that are trending up in Pepperdine's favor. And I think you just look at the optics of everything. I mean, that's great. You just, I hate to use this phrase because I sound like I'm like an online burner account user, but you just lockered a Big East team in recruiting somebody. And this is someone who can score the rock pretty dang well when you look at all things considered, and the way he's someone who's competed on the top circuits, the Nike EYBL Scholastic League. So like this is someone where it's not like he played in a rural part of a certain state and then was beating up on bad competition and got misrated or anything like that. This is someone who has proven it. This is someone who plays at a high level. This is someone who I don't think it's necessarily our place to say, why did he decide to flip to Pepperdine? But it's like, this is something where you should be welcoming the fact that maybe with the focus on the transfer portal elsewhere in the nation, it's like the WCC can be a place where you can focus on multi-year development and try and get guys on the radars, especially of NBA teams. And obviously there's always the day and age of, oh my God, will he get poached? But just in general, it's like you can have your own imprint on these prep recruits and then get credit for their development when they eventually reach their mountaintops.
I mean, and Pepperdine has been a spot where you can go and get ready for the league. I mean, Max Lewis was just a few years ago, and he was able to get out of Pepperdine on a not good Pepperdine team and get to the league. So I mean, on a squad that's starting to look a little bit more put together, this looks like a great spot for Constanza. Like you mentioned the scoring, like junior year, like looking at the stats, like 29 points, 10 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shooting 61% from the field. It's like you're looking at all the numbers, and this is someone who's going to make an immediate impact. And the roster as a whole, like the one thing I think you always think about is the how much experience is there on a team, because I think we've seen it over the last few years, especially with NIL and the way the transfer portal has gone, is that experience matters. Younger teams tend to struggle. And this Pepperdine team, even though, yes, they just, we were talking about a first-year freshman who's coming in, this is a team with 8 upperclassmen and with some familiar names. Will McClendon coming over from North Texas. Seen him in game action in person, and that's bringing that sort of toughness and leadership is critical. Pitar Mastorovich coming over from Long Beach State, who previously was at Syracuse. He's got good footwork. He's agile. He can go in and out. He's got size. Jahari Williamson coming in. Anthony Robinson from both Xavier and Virginia is going to give him some physicality. This, this is a well put together roster, and one that I think is going to not they're not going to be the pushover that Pepperdine had been for the last couple of years, and I think can make some noise in the WCC. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see what that non-conference schedule looks like to see if they're really going to be able we're going to be able to really truly see it early on. But once we hit conference, like this, at least on paper, looks like a team that can be in the mix for the top half of the league.
I think when I look at Pepperdine's like long-term prospects, to me, it kind of rests in the hands of how good Will McClendon kind of looks, because he's coming off injury last year with North Texas, tore his ACL. I was talking with his former coach and Danielle Robinson over with North Texas last year, and kind of what he was giving. It was a good veteran presence for the time he was there till he got injured at Oregon State. It's critical to have veterans like that who can kind of stir the drink a little bit. And I think for me, when I look at Pepperdine in terms of their growth, Will McClendon's a good veteran presence to have, and someone where you're hoping that shooting efficiency runs to form in terms of it continuing to grow. And when I look at what their ceiling kind of looks like, I think how smooth he looks, how I don't know if refresh is the right word, but just how he kind of tries to hit the ground running, because it's not always easy, especially beyond physically, but also like the mental and emotional aspects of working through an ACL injury and like that. So I look at Will McClendon as kind of like a tipping point for the Waves, all things considered. And I think he can be a really good asset. We've seen it, how he provided early on in his career at UCLA and how he was trying to do so at San Jose State and then North Texas. So I'm not saying this from like a doom perspective, but I think it's like a cautiously optimistic approach of if you get a good version of Will McClendon coming off injury, then you've increased your stock pretty high.
I mean, I think the one thing is like there's always kind of been this, like, we've seen Pepperdine do it. Obviously, it's been a long, long time since we've seen Pepperdine be like that, one of those top half a top half WCC team consistently over the course of time. It's like we have to go all the way back to the early 2000s to find those Pepperdine squads that were doing that. But it seems like now that there's kind of a base and a direction with the way the roster was put together. And I think that's one of the more exciting things to look at. Obviously, we know Aldrich did this at Longwood when he was the head coach there. And so there is at least a track record of success of doing it at the mid-major level, and with the resources that Pepperdine has, which may not be as like what maybe some of the others in the WCC have worked with over the last few years. I think this is a big statement of what we've seen. Constanza obviously is the big statement, but even just the rest of the roster, the veteran presence, some of the guys that they're able to pull in is definitely going to make people turn their heads a little bit. Like Pepperdine is going to look more the part than they have in recent memory.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think when you look at the growth of Southern California WCC hoops, I think this is almost like a battle within the battle. What is a first year, even though it's a first year head coach versus a first time head coach, and the delineations within that, how does Pepperdine look against San Diego? Can they kind of leapfrog LMU kind of off the rip? A lot of Southern California teams have a lot of room to grow. And I think when you look at just kind of getting in the weeds of this conference and who can kind of be the next Pacific, so to speak, Pacific win from a team that you talk about now because they're relevant and deserve to be just because of the way Dave Smart operated in year two, who can kind of take that leap from those pack of teams, I think is the big question for me.
I mean, and so that gives us that transition to talk about one of those other SoCal schools, because you're right. It's like Pepperdine is making those moves. San Diego is making those moves. And the other one is LMU. LMU is starting to make some of those moves as well. And our good friend Andy Patton over at Locked On College Basketball was talking about some of the who could be some breakout Power Six transfers going to mid majors, and he pointed out one of LMU's Incomers, All Wright, coming over from Xavier, and how this is a guy who has a lot of the skill sets. He can be that ball handler, he can be the shooter, he has the physicality, that he could be maybe that breakout star in the WCC, uh, coming over. Like, you know what? Obviously, there's plenty of opportunity in the league, and this LMU squad has always found a way to get, has, especially over the last couple of years, like they get talent in the door, and I think that's one of the things that is at least exciting about what the possibilities are for the Lions. And I think the two of us have pointed it out time and time again. I think we're waiting for them to put it together. We want to see it on the court, because this still was a team that was pretty talented a year ago, but ended up finishing 10th in the league. So there's still an uphill battle, an uphill climb for the Lions, and especially when we think about some of the other teams and what they've done. Now, grant you, this is not just All Wright that has come over. You think of Zion Sensley coming over, another former top 100 recruit. Mazzy Mosley coming over, also another former top 100 recruit that are coming in. Like, and the tape on Mosley is like wildly athletic, so that it's fun to watch his tape. Magic Johnson's nephew, by the way, if you don't know. So there is some magic coming back to LA in the form of Mosley, and this LMU team has a lot of the pieces, has a lot of the ingredients that you would think that could also make a run for the top half of the league. But I know, like, the two of us are like, we need to see this come to form. We need to see it all put together for LMU, but the pieces seem to all be there. And our buddy Andy Patton calling it out for the Lions.
I mean, you kind of largely know where I'm going to go on this. Yes, this is great talent, and I'm glad that LMU is still attracting that talent despite some of the recent run of record. I think when you mentioned All Right and the Andy choosing him as kind of like the breakout star, so to speak. I want to focus in on Zion Sensley, because that's like a familiar name to many of our WCCers just from his time, and being committed to St. Mary's, and at that time being one of the highest rated recruits ever, to then getting released from his NLI. I believe that was when Justin Joyner left for Michigan around that time, if I remember correctly, and then playing at UCSB last year. And he's someone who averaged double figures, shot 36% from three. So I mean, that's okay. Like that's all well and good. So I think when I look at LMU and taking the next step, can Zion Sensley kind of in tandem take that next step, continue to work on his off the bounce game more than anything? Because this was a recruit that was seen, especially as you look to his Bay Area ties and being a part of Archbishop Reardon and kind of working on the peninsula for some time and kind of where he was growing up. I think there's just kind of a want to see him kind of do well, and did okay and did solid for himself in his 1 year with the Gauchos. So I look at him in LMU, like that's a kind of similar to what Will McClendon is at Pepperdine. I think Zion Sensley can be a tipping point for LMU, and kind of just seeing how his growth can kind of line up with LMU's growth. But I'm going to co-sign the back half of what you said, because this is the firm train that I'm on with LMU. You just have to prove it to me. I mean, that's all it is. That there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I think everybody in the building knows it. And we don't mean to say that from like a arrogance perspective or anything like that, but that's just what the track record has been, and now the track record is expected to be different. And it's been different puzzle pieces, different strokes for different folks. So now it's like, okay, can you just go out and get a winning record, get a winning conference record, and go make some noise in the WCC tournament, and then we can go revisit. Hey, is this LMU really different? Because I mean, this, and we don't. Again, I'm not saying this from an antagonist perspective. It's every year. Is this the different LMU? Are we finally going to get the different LMU? And then the last couple of seasons, just like, no, it just hasn't been. So that's where I kind of stand on all this. Great talent. We will Jerry Stout if it comes together.
Yeah, we'll have to. Again, we want to be optimists about this. We want LMU to kind of to be able to elevate themselves. The pieces are all here. Because we're not trying to be antagonistic about this. We're not trying to beat the drum and continue to say like LMU's not meeting expectations, blah 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 blah, all that sort of stuff. We see what the talent is here. We want to be able to see it get all put together, because we saw it a few years back. Like when LMU got going, that made the league a lot more fun to see the Lions get on that run with Cam Shelton and that bunch. But that also we're talking about again, proving yourselves, getting out the gate. This is my opportunity to get on the soapbox here because I've been I was saying it last year during the non-conference when I was just disappointed by the lack of opportunities that St. Mary's had. That it will not be the case this year because we did talk last time about how St. Mary's added Nevada, added St. Louis to the non-conference schedule, but they weren't done. Since the last time we talked, they have added a trip to New Mexico, which is a 3-game set, 2 down at the pit and 1 in Moraga, and then another where they'll be heading to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. Now, yes, Oklahoma State is not a top half a Big 12 team, but that is still going on the road to a Big 12 environment, and that is no joke going into any one of those buildings. Not you think about now that they have New Mexico, Oklahoma State, Nevada, they have St. Louis, they have tournament, the Raddy's Children's Invitational. Well, they could see Texas, Georgetown, or UCLA, and 2 of those 3 they'll end up matchups with. It's a non-conference that is, I think, puffing its chest out to be able to say we're going to prove ourselves and know who we are real fast in the non-conference. And ton of credit to Mickey McConnell, his coaching staff, for getting these matchups together because this is the sort of thing when it's like, okay, now I'm juiced about the non-conference schedule because now I can get excited in November about seeing this team.
I like it. I like it a lot. And this is, I mean, I shared those sentiments last year. I was just like, I just didn't feel that strongly about what St. Mary's is bringing to the table. And, honestly, I'm going to tee you back up on the soapbox real quick. I'm just going to let you go because you are more qualified to talk about this than I am. Because I don't, just in certain years, Randy Bennett wouldn't even come close to scheduling this type of non-conference schedule. And, all the credit to him for all the success he had. That's just kind of how it was. But the question I'm going to pose to you is, this is the best St. Mary's non-conference schedule since when?
I think the one year I have to go back to is probably 20. This is probably 22. I believe it's the 21-22 season. I'm trying to remember the full slate of the non-conference, but it was a year where they had Houston on a neutral site. And that one was that was a really good game. So this is the Logan Johnson team and that bunch. I probably have to go back a few years to find like the best non-conference, but this one's going to be in that conversation. And obviously it's like we're not done talking about this non-conference yet either, because there's still plenty of spots to schedule in. Obviously there's probably still some contracted games that already just haven't been scheduled yet. So we haven't gotten the full slate of them yet, but just even seeing who we have right now, these are the games you actually get excited for. These are the ones that it's like, oh, now I'm excited to see what's going to happen moving forward, because I have some marquees on here. I have some notable names. Again, the names do matter here. Like we said it last year, we've said it kind of time and time again. It adds a level of excitement now because now people are paying attention. Like, oh, you're going on the road to do this, do this, do this. Yes, we see it now, and it's going to be a ton of fun to see these teams go at it. And new look St. Mary's team. Yes, you still have Josh Dent. Yes, you still have a slew of the guys, but this is going to be a brand new look and feel for the Gales, and them getting challenged this often early on is going to be top notch. Like I'm looking forward to this.
Look, I mean, I'm not ruling out the possibility. In fact, I'm probably more of a coin toss on this. How about we go up to unofficial WCC hoops live from Tahoe? I mean, come on now. I mean, don't rule it out when they face Nevada. So I mean, just those, and I share that excitement with you. Just being a fan of the league, it's like, yeah, you want those types of opportunities, and going up to play Tahoe against a very respectable Nevada team. Yes, you can get potential revenge on Mick Cronin for the NCAA tournament a couple years ago. Yes, could you go see Mikey Lewis? Potential, like this is like there's so many of those little different like nuances that kind of get in there, so to speak, in terms of what this St. Mary's non-conference schedule is like. And I look at all and say, this is the type of punch and response, the kind of setup that Mickey McConnell and company may want in year one, because you're going to have the ability to take a punch in this non-conference. Things are not going to be linear. And when I look at everything else from a kind of big picture perspective, it's going to teach a lot about a team that's coming together and a lot of parts that Mickey McConnell kind of constructed. So all things considered, I love it. I think it's going to be a great resource, all things considered, for how the Gales look to build on the post Randy Bennett era.
All right, as we wrap this one up, we're going to talk about we've talked about non-conference a bit. How about the conference schedule? Because the WCC did release the conference matchups for the 27 season and the 16 game schedule. You'll have 7 games where you play the full round robin, and then there'll be 2 one-offs, one at home, one away. Which of the one-offs were you looking at as one you really kind of want to see how the tide turns?
I'm going to go straight back to the well on this one. Denver not having to go to St. Mary's, most of our characterizations will be, this X team gets to go to Y place. For me, it's who doesn't get to go here. And I think Denver not going to St. Mary's for year one in the league and kind of where they had been in terms of their basketball scope, at least compared to the rest of this WCC that's ascending, that's as close to as good of a first step as you can have. You avoid the conference leaders, you avoid the sweat box over in the East Bay, and you get a good gauge of how you stack up against the rest of the league. You get St. Mary's at home. You get to play maybe the altitude a little bit more of the factor into that type of play. Maybe you catch them. It's going to be difficult as all heck to beat St. Mary's anyway, but just in general, the optics of not having to go to one of the presumed conference favorites, you get to have them in your spot. And I think just in terms of the way, not easing into the league, as I kind of hinted at, but just more of like we're missing that bullet this year before we eventually have to go out and sack up eventually. So for me, it's Denver not having to go to St. Mary's. I don't know where you kind of fall along that front in terms of wanting to see the Pioneers, or at least maybe there's another thing that sticks out to you. But for me, it's the not in terms of someone that is going somewhere.
I mean, there's so many one-offs that you can kind of go to. Maybe the one I'm going to go to is those teams that are trying to make their name or try to figure out how to kind of get over the top. I'm looking at that Pacific and Seattle matchup in Stockton, because these are 2 teams that we know are going to be probably jockeying right there in the middle of trying to get into that top half of the league. And this is having the fact that they only play each other once is a huge deal, I think. So I mean, thinking about Will Heimbrough going down to Stockton, thinking about what that team is going to look like, Dave Smart squad. I'm staring at Pacific and Seattle U, because I think that's going to be one hell of a defensive matchup at the Spano Center.
I mean, there were a bunch of rock fights between those teams last year. WCC tournament again in Stockton last year when they played. So I expect more of the same, especially when you consider the way the identity of those 2 head coaches and Chris Victor and Dave Smart. And I think you just look across the league. There's so many of those little intricate matchups, because you're not going to see him again, or someone's avoiding a certain place to go. I think we both got some pretty good choices within that fact. And let's see, if I check my watch that I don't have on my arm here, we still have 5 months, or a little less than 5 months now. So we're firmly in the off season. We'll see where Alan Graves gets drafted. We'll see where everybody else kind of shakes out as the non-conference schedule start to get leaked out. We're going to go trust in our boy Rocco Miller to go get the scoop for everyone and let us react to it. So, Zach, time's ticking in the off season.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Unofficial WCC Hoops podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the pod on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you are listening. Follow along on social media at Unofficial WCC Pod. That's Thomas. I'm Zach. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will catch you later.